Well, welcome to The Real Dope. It is 11 a.m. Eastern Thursday morning, and it is time for The Real Dope podcast. I'm hanging out here with my sister, Beth Brand, and this is a show all about you, the enabler. We wanted to design a show not for the addict. There's so much conversation out there about the addict, but we wanted to design a show for those of us who love, support, and quite frankly, just have to deal with addicts. Now, quick reminder, we are not doctors, we are not therapists, we are not even experts in the field of addiction, unless you call experience an expert. We're just two people who, like you, have had to love, support, and quite frankly, deal with addicts. So, Beth, what's on tap for today?
So today we are going to talk about denial, but not in the normal way. We're going to talk about the dangers of it for everyone, for you, for your person who's suffering with addiction, and for all the people in your family.
Yeah, denial is, it's when you do a lot of research on the word denial, so much of it comes up for the addict, but very little for the enabler. And I think denial is an interesting word because without some level of denial, I don't know that you would survive, and too much denial takes you over the edge. So let's go ahead and get started.
Welcome to The Real Dope, a podcast for anyone walking alongside someone battling addiction, based on the powerful book, The Real Dope on Dealing with an Addict, by sisters Elizabeth Brand and Meridith Elliott Powell. Each episode will explore practical strategies, share authentic stories, and provide the honest guidance. Let's begin today's journey and turn survival into strength.
When I was thinking about denial, when you told me this is what we were going to be talking about today, or reminded me, it made me think, let's just start with what exactly is denial? I feel like it's one of those words that we talk about all the time, but we very rarely really define. So what does denial mean to you?
Well, first of all, they always talk about the person suffering with addiction being in denial. But if you're living with somebody with addiction, we all start off in denial because we're not accepting the truth. And that's what denial is. You keep talking yourself out of what is. And when you do that, you're not dealing in real life. But we do that for a lot of reasons. We do it because it's hard to accept what is. The Buddhists would call it the root of all suffering, having expectations.
Yeah.
And that's part of denial. How about for you?
So when I think about denial, the very first word, like if I sit with it silently, the very first word that popped for me was protection. Is that my denial protects me from having to deal with the reality of the situation. But Beth, denial is such a word that permeates every part of our culture.
Yeah.
I think about
of our lives, like that. Sometimes that's just how we make it through the day.
But I think about CEOs that I work with that results aren't there, and the denial that they have any engagement in it or not dealing in the reality of it. But I was trying to think like where my denial started. Does denial begin because you have a twisted view of what is normal? And what I mean by that is like, I wondered if I denied that my husband was an addict because the world that I grew up in was full of addicts. So that was normal to me. Like I was trying to figure out like, where does the denial begin?
Well, I think part of it is that, but I also think part of it is like we have expectations. Like, especially like when you're newly married, like you want the world, like you think the world's going to be a certain way, and then it's not. But you can't really accept what's going on. And to accept that your loved one has a problem, or to accept that you have a problem, let's just put it back on us. To accept that you are sitting around controlling everything is to deny what's going on. And if you deny what's going on, you don't face what's going on, you can't fix what's going on and start to live in reality. You keep living in a fantasy. But to answer your question, I think we grew up thinking like this was normal. We didn't have a good base.
Okay, so then here's here's my other question around denial is, so I remember there used to be this restaurant out on Tunnel Road, and you were here with Cab, and Edward, I think, was with you as well. It's one of those rare occasions when you actually traveled with Edward. And the five of us went to dinner at this restaurant. I can't even remember the name of it.
I have no memory of this.
Yeah, it was called the Poseidon. And Doug would get up from dinner and say he needed to go smoke a cigarette, and he would go to the bar and do a shot.
Wow.
Now, I was in complete denial about that, but you knew that's what he was doing. So, I think it's like, so let's talk through that, because I think denial is, I'll use your term because I know that's where you wanted to go with it today. Denial is dangerous because we're often unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the world that I lived in, it was not unusual for my husband to not be able to make it through a dinner without doing a couple of shots. Yet I was in complete denial. Like I believed he was walking outside to smoke a cigarette. Why? Like, how do you get into that space?
Well, what would it have meant if you would have known he was walking in there to get shots?
I would have tried to stop him.
And then what? And like, then we have a fight, then dinner would be ruined, then everything that you wanted for that evening would be gone.
Right.
I mean, to see reality, to get yourself out of the denial and see the reality would be extremely painful on like a lot of levels. And you'd have to admit that your husband was an alcoholic who couldn't even make it through a dinner without taking a shot. I mean, I can remember being at your house on your little house by the railroad track. Yeah. And like Doug was totally off his rocker. Like he definitely had a bottle of vodka.
Yeah.
And you were just like, everything's cool. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. I remember he woke me up in the middle of the night because we had this little step going to the front door, like it's just a tiny little step. And he'd fallen on that step, and he'd fallen into, we had a table or something there, and he'd cut his head open straight down there. Well, you know, since he was an addict, since he was an alcoholic, he bled like a sieve. Yeah. I mean, so much blood. And he woke me up. I had taken him to the emergency room, and I really believed he was tired and he fell. And I look at that now, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, how are you supposed to, and maybe what we do is, I want to talk about the dangers of denial because I think that's really important. But how do you even spot the dangers of denial when you don't even know you're in denial? I mean, it would have been so easy to look at my life and know I was off my rocker.
How long do you think Mother was in denial of? I mean, you were there more than I was about our father. Like,
I think that I think our mother was in denial about our father until she flew to Oklahoma with Daddy, and his brother took him to see a special physician there, and the physician told him that if you take another drink, you'll die. And they came back to the hotel room, and she found a bottle of vodka he was watching television, and there was a bottle of vodka,
which he did not drink. That was not his drink.
Underneath his chair. And I remember her, and the reason I think this is when she came out of denial was two reasons. Number one is she recognized it, and number two was she told me. And
wow.
And that was not.
And so I would have been 21 or 22. So you would have just been like 18 or something.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the very fact that she told me, when she got home, she told me that, that happened. But I don't think she came out of denial until then. And the reason I don't think that is that when I was about 14 or 15, she started to get really angry. And I think a lot of anger in an individual is denial. I was talking with a client about this today. Like, I was thinking about the rage of one political party to another political party, and that political party back to, like, that people are so mad they won't talk to people from other political parties. And, you know, people are crazed right now. And I think a lot of it is denial and displaced anger at, you know, like if you vote for somebody, it really doesn't impact my life that much that I would hate you so much I would never talk to you. You know, so it's a lot of displaced anger. And Mother started to get really angry when I was about 14 years old. She would get really mad at stuff that was ridiculous to get mad at.
Because it was displaced anger, because what she was really angry about was our father and her situation. And that was something that she didn't want to face.
Yeah. And but I think she was so unconscious to it. Like, and that's what I think is, like, as I'm reflecting on my own denial, the thing that I think is so interesting is that it's like, I was so steeped in denial that I didn't even know I was in denial.
Don't you think we were raised to be in denial?
Yes.
I had more issues with that than everybody else in our family.
Yeah.
Always. Because I mean, I can remember like saying, Daddy's taking beer and it's 5:00 in the morning to drive me to Mercersburg. Right. And I was like, why is he packing beer? Oh, he just does, like the denial of it.
I don't know if you remember this too. We were in Bar Harbor, Maine on vacation, and we were trying like heck to catch the ferry to go to Nova Scotia, and we were late and the car was packed. And Daddy didn't lock down. Mother and Father used to travel with that little liquor.
Yeah, yeah.
Little suitcase. I thought everybody had a suitcase that you just carried 2 bottles of liquor and, and your whatever. And the suitcase fell off the car, and Daddy didn't notice for like 20 minutes, and we went back and we almost missed the ferry because he was not going to get on that ferry without that,
alcohol.
Without that bottle of liquor. And that's guess what you're saying though is, see, that to me is where there's value in denial, is that there is something to say about buck up, little soldier, and make it happen. Like, I could bail Doug out of jail and be at the Chamber of Commerce leading a meeting at 8 a.m. like nothing was wrong in my life. And I don't know how you do that without some level of denial that your life is insane.
And I guess that answers your question, is when do you get out of denial, is when the pain point is so much you can no longer make it to the jail to bail him out and get to your meeting. Yeah. It's the pain point. And it's like anything. It's like, how much pain is it going to take? Yeah. And that's up to you. Like, how much pain did our mother go through until she got to that point? I mean, and the point was our father was on death's door by the time she got to the point where she's like, ooh, maybe I wasn't paying attention here. Yeah,
but the interesting thing about her, she went right back into denial.
Yeah. Yeah. I can just remember, I just didn't know how long I was going to stand it, but I just had known how I was raised, and I just said my child was not going to grow up with this. Mm-hmm. This wasn't going to be. And I don't know. I mean, I always say if it hadn't been for my son, Edward would probably still be alive today, and I'd be dead from enabling so hard, But that was my pain point, was my child pushed me out of my denial and pushed me out of my enabling to do something better, for sure.
I think denial, though, is a bit like a Ponzi scheme. Like, you're holding so many balls in the air that it's just a matter of time till they fall out. Because what happened to me was I had Sue Fazio knocking on my door wanting to get into my life of something I'd been trying to guard and something I had been ever. Doug was getting more and more out of control. Like, what he was doing was he wasn't contained to the inside of our house.
Like your neighbor, like when he was outside drunk and your neighbor knew and all that stuff.
Yeah. And then, and it just got to the point where I was trying to throw so many balls in the air and keep them up that I couldn't keep them all in the air, that it crashed. And that was the night that I had to call the Laurel Park Police Department and, have little Henry Johnson come up to my house and everything. And that was the night that everything came crashing down for me. But the denial did not end for me until I was running so hard to keep everything in the air, I couldn't stop it.
So here's the good news, is that your person suffering with addiction will definitely push you out of your denial eventually.
Yeah.
But that's one of the dangers of it. I mean, you are sitting in denial. You are just allowing this person to continue on this path. And you also are on your path. And that's one of the dangers of denial, is that you don't nip this in the bud and clean it up, at least for yourself. I mean, the person suffering with addiction has to do what they have to do. But you either go down with the ship or you get off this ship of denial. Which, it causes suffering, but we think we're preventing suffering.
Yeah, we think we are. I'll tell you, the other thing too, I think is a danger of denial is I look back in my 20s and my early 30s and I look how bad my health was. Like I had constant, I had a lot of styes. I had a lot of, I would get huge ulcers in my mouth. I'd get a lot of cold sores. I had terrible migraine headaches. And I have to think that all of that was from my own denial, is that my
from stress, from keeping everything down,
from the stress of keeping from the stress of keeping everything from everything down. And I think a huge danger of denial is the toll it's taking on your own body.
Definitely. But to me, the biggest danger is you're just not living in reality.
Yeah.
You know, like you're living your life and you're going through, you're like, it's not real. And you think that other people can't see that. And you're just trying to throw so many balls in the air. I mean, my business suffered, my health suffered, my life suffered, because you just can't keep all this stuff hidden.
Yeah. I also think that another danger of it is isolation. Like, I think the further that you go into denial, the more isolated you become, because it's like, let's assume, let's go back to that dinner at the Poseidon. Had you said to me, your husband's getting up and going and having shots, I get defensive. And when I get defensive, I don't want you in my life because you're making me look at reality, and I don't want to look at reality. So I isolate. I go further away into like this protection mode, which is so dangerous for you.
Do you think like you didn't even know? Like, I feel more like I talked myself out of it. Like, oh, Edward will be okay. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. I was always like suspicious, but it would be okay. Like he could drive us there or whatever, which never should have happened.
I think more for me, I think that I believed things weren't happening. Like, let me say it this way. I believed on a conscious level. People ask me all the time, did you know your husband was an addict when you married him? And I always respond to this and say, absolutely. In my unconscious, I knew he was an addict. In my conscious, I had decided that he was not. Like, that was
that was me too. I would agree with that too.
Yeah. And so I feel like on some level, did I know when he was going outside to tell me he was smoking a cigarette, that he was going to the bar and getting a shot? I think I knew that. But I don't think it's interesting to me, whatever the protection that denial is, whatever goes on in your mind that stops you from believing that, because it's protecting you from the pain.
So when you came home to that little house and he had a thing of vodka before like you moved into your other house, did you not know? Could you not tell he was drunk?
No.
Yeah.
No, it's why I'm so hypersensitive to it now. I can tell you right now, if Rob has a drink, I know it in 2 seconds. Is because I think that I turned that off for so long, that it was just a way of the way that I went into denial.
Like you're scared you won't be able to judge it and you won't know. Oh, wow. That's interesting. Yeah.
I also think that you're so in that, you talk about another stage of denial. I think you're in heavy denial when you believe you're addict. The moment that you look an addict in the eye and say, have you had a drink? Have you taken any drugs? Have you, looked at porn, whatever the addiction is? And they say, absolutely not. The moment that you believe that, you're in denial. Like,
what about denial of your own behavior? Did you see yourself as like,
no,
you think you're doing the right thing and that you're great, and you're in denial of the harm that you are causing by controlling everything?
No. In fact, I think I've told this story before, but when Doug died, I remember Sue saying to me, she never said, I'm sorry. She never said sorry for your loss or anything. She just looked at me. She goes, it's going to be really interesting to watch you come to terms with your dark side. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she goes, well, she said, this wasn't all him. You were dancing just as hard as he was. And at first I was really offended. I was like, no, I'm the martyr. I'm the good one.
I'm the good one.
Yeah. And then watching, I think I spent 36 years in denial of my own, in my own behavior. And I don't know that I came out of that denial until I watched having that same behavior with Rob. It's like in my marriage now, is that it's like, it's, just as that. I mean, the biggest thing I remember, and you called me on the carpet for me, for it. But when Doug and I moved and you came over to help us unpack, and I went and helped the Rotary all day long and just left him there to do that. Mm-hmm. And that denial that was so, I think I've spent most of my life incredibly in denial of how selfish I am, and that selfishness really contributed to Doug's feeling of loneliness, of not mattering, of not being important. Like, he definitely chose me for a reason.
Yeah. But I wouldn't call it selfishness. I would call it self-protection.
Yeah.
Like you were in a protection mode, and it was just a bad dance between the two of you.
Yeah.
Like you married each other to make your wounds worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like whatever you were wounded with, instead of healing each other, you just kept wounding each other. Like he became more of a addicted to alcohol, and you became crueler to him.
Yeah.
What appeared to be cruel. You weren't trying to be
it was cruel. No,
but it was
sure.
cruel. Yeah.
So how do you start to come out of denial?
Well, it's the pain point, right? And that's why, like, things like this, or Al-Anon, or therapy, or however you choose to heal, it's why it's important. The sooner you come out, the less damage you do to yourself, to your family, to the person suffering with addiction. So that's why, like, we didn't have anyone to tell us no one told us we were in denial, and nobody told us how to get out of it. Or to wake up. So we had these terrible pain points. Yours was, Doug's condition, the condition of your life. Mine was looking at my little baby son and saying, am I just going to sleep around him in a U for the rest of his life? Because this is a scary place to be. No. Mm-hmm. So that's, so where you need to get is, if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I'm not really in denial. I'm really, like, just open your mind to it and explore.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is I think for anybody listening to this, I think a really good first step is to ask for, find, or call into your life somebody who loves you enough to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. Even if you don't want to hear it, even if you don't agree with what they say, but somebody who loves you enough to be honest, because I think that denial definitely comes from, you snap out of it when the pain point gets bad enough. But I think if you could even catch early and just ask yourself, is this the life I want? And what's my role in it? Because I think the biggest thing about denial is blame as well, is that it's like, I really believed my life could not be better because I had to take care of this addict. That was the story I had told myself. I had crafted this story in my head, and I believed that story. And none of that story was true. I mean, it wasn't easy to make the change, but none of that story, so I think calling somebody into your life, I think is important.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking too, earlier when I was thinking about this topic, about like what that denial looks like for an enabler. I think it looks like, and this just not just the person with addiction, but all your relationships, sticking your nose in where it doesn't belong.
Yeah,
for sure. Placing expectations on other people, that they should be like this. I mean, that's a form of denial, because it's like, I think this is how it should be.
Right.
When that is not how it is,
right.
And as soon as you start to accept how it is, and I think the biggest thing, and this is just such an enabling, is wasting all your energy trying to manipulate situations and other people instead of putting your energy into yourself.
Yeah. Or caring about things that really don't, getting involved in things that really don't involve you. And,
but I think you don't want to look at yourself, right?
No, that's why you do it.
That's part of the denial, is you don't you don't want to see the reality. You don't want to look at yourself. You just want to say somebody else is wrong.
Yeah,
You know?
or making other people worse than you, like Daddy used to do with, he didn't like people who smoked cigarettes,
Yeah.
or had beards, and it was his
Yeah.
way of justifying, what he was doing.
Or his
what's the-
friend who was the doctor, who was like one of the first people to tell him he had a problem. He said the
Yeah.
guy's overweight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So what's the biggest thing you're taking from today?
I think the biggest thing I'm taking away is that denial is dangerous, and start to call yourself out when you see it. And if you have trouble noticing it or noticing what it is or when you're in it, go get some help so somebody can guide you and try to get you there.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I'm taking away is that it's, if you want to get out of denial, it's to begin to really practice self-awareness, is to really just catch your emotions, not try to change them, but to think about them and think about your actions and what you're thinking and what you're feeling and what's driving that, and really try to get to the base and try to get, really try to get to the, to the root of it.
Because being in denial, because you're not dealing with reality, it makes you take wrong actions.
Yes.
You take wrong action. You're digging yourself into the hole, not digging yourself out of the hole by being in denial. And until you start to deal with the reality of yourself and your situation, it's not going to get better for anybody, including yourself.
No.
Yeah.
So next week I had a topic I wanted to talk about,
good.
and I wanted to talk about the expanding role of addiction in our society and why it's expanding and what's driving that addiction and all the different forms that addiction takes.
Oh, good. Because I'm going to have to think about that.
Yeah. All right.
Because that's a big topic. That's a great topic.
Well, and because it really is expanding, right?
Okay. Yeah. Oh, and I think as our journey has told us, now that we live lives where we're not really experiencing people who are active in their addictions, we still see our own addictive behavior and addictive behavior of other people all around. Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure.
All right. We'll see you right back here next week for another episode of The Real Dope.